All right, well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today, our seventh Parapsychology Australia online conference. My name is Joyce. I am going to be hosting today. I am the Vice President for the Australian Institute of Parapsychological Research, and I also work as a psychologist in near Perth in Western Australia. A little bit about the Australian Institute of Parapsychological Research, or the AIPR. It's been around since 1977, so a long time. And it's a non-profit and charity organisation. So all proceeds from our events go to the AIPR. So thank you so much for joining us and helping us fund our activities. We are the largest parapsychology organisation in Australia. Very proud about that. We have members worldwide. And if you want to join us, if you haven't already, you can go to our website, which is aiprinc.org. And it's only $15 per year. You get 2 newsletters and you also get discounts to events. We also have a journal. It's the Australian Journal of Parapsychology. And for $70, you can get a physical uh, copy sent to you, so twice a year, or for $35, you can get an e version of the journal. So lots of interesting research in that journal. We have 2 events a year, usually mid-year. We have an online event like today, and towards the end of the year, usually the first weekend of December or the last weekend of November, we have a physical in-person conference in North Sydney. We also have online courses. You can work towards getting a certificate in parapsychology and advanced certificate in parapsychology. The units are around $100 to $124. So it's very affordable. And yeah, so check out our website. There's a wealth of resources and other information on there as well. So
You've pretty much covered everything on the website, but there's more there if people want to explore it. So there's readings, for example, lots of readings that people can read online or download to read later. We also provide help to people, clinical or non-clinical, not in a very heavy way, but in a light sort of a way to identify a problem, and then we can sort of refer people on to other specialists or professionals if the case needs doing. Perhaps you could talk about that more, Joyce, about the clinical.
oh, yes, yes. So we do actually have so Rob Tilley is a full member of the AIPR, and he does clearings, so house clearings. So yeah, he provides that service. I'm a psychologist, so we're not going to. You can ring us, and we can have a chat and refer you on. We yeah, we're all volunteers, so we can't provide full services. But we will be able to perhaps just, have a chat and then refer you on to someone else that might be able to help you. Or just ring us for any interesting stories. Yeah, we're always open to that. Yeah, is there anything to do with research, Lance? Do we have any research funding at all?
Well, we used to.
We used to, we don't
We're always on
anymore.
the,
Yeah.
on the we're also always on the hunt for people that want to donate to research, and there's an option there, a donation option on the website.
Yes.
People can make donations and stipulate how they want the money spent, for example, to go towards research. There are various avenues for parapsychological research, but they're outside our institution. So we just simply lack the funding to be able to fund research on a major scale.
We'll get started. Yeah, very excited for today. We've got a wonderful lineup of speakers and topics, a real smorgasbord of different psychological topics. We've got spiritual emergency, mindfulness, um, shared death, near-death experiences, and looking at different belief systems and superstition. Yeah, so all very different. I'm so looking forward to it. So without further ado, I will introduce our first couple of speakers. So we've got Monika Goretzki, and she's a registered psychologist and certified yoga and meditation instructor. Monika completed a Bachelor of Science in psychophysiology and psychology at Swinburne University and has a PhD investigating psychosis and spiritual emergency at Adelaide University, where she continues as a visiting research fellow. As a lecturer in higher education, Monika has also taught various courses with transpersonal counselling and psychotherapy diploma and degree programs. Lance has earned his Bachelor of Arts with honours in psychology and a PhD in parapsychology at the University of Adelaide, South Australia. He has published in Psychological Bulletin, the Journal of Parapsychology, Journal of Scientific Exploration, and elsewhere. He is a full member of the Australian Institute of Parapsychological Research. He's actually our treasurer, and of whose journal, the Australian Journal of Parapsychology, he is the chief editor. In 2012, he was awarded the Outstanding Contribution Award by the Parapsychological Association. He is the author of The Enigma of Numbers, A New Approach to PSI, and A New Approach to Synchronicity. As a research fellow, he conducts psychological and parapsychological research in the School of Psychology at the University of Adelaide. So they're both going to present the psychology and parapsychology of spiritual emergence.
Yeah. I'll get started. Okay, thank you. Thanks for that, Joyce. I'm really excited to be here. I'm looking forward to all the talks today. It sounds amazing. And thanks to the AIPR and inviting us to talk about our research. So if Lance, because you have the slides, can I just say change slide and you'll move it on? Is that all right? Yep. Okay, yep. So let's go to the next slide.
It's not working.
Okay.
There we go.
Fantastic. All right. So it was in the early 90s that Stan and Christina Grof created the term spiritual emergency to describe a critical and experientially difficult stage of a profound psychological transformation that involves one's entire being. Spiritual emergency generally consists of non-ordinary states of consciousness that can involve intense emotions, visions, and other sensory changes, as well as unusual thoughts and physical manifestations. Spiritual emergency often leads to a transformation. The emergency leads to an emergence, a spiritual awakening, or a new attitude towards life. And so you may wonder, what does spiritual emergency have to do with parapsychology? Well, in their research, the Grofs found a marked presence of psychic ability or experience during the SE process. And this has prompted one of our research questions that we're presenting today. Does spiritual emergency guarantee psi or give an advantage to the experience of psychic phenomena? We'll come back to this later. But firstly, we'll get a better understanding of the various phenomena which one may experience during a spiritual emergency. So we'll start with the dark night of the soul. This is a metaphor to describe a lonely and desolate period of one's life when one seems to be cut off from one's greater self or God. The term is derived from the writings of a 16th century Spanish Carmelite monk named John of the Cross, and he was a religious reformer who was imprisoned for his actions. And it was during this incarceration he produced a poem called The Dark Night, and this poem described the effects taking place within the individual during their spiritual development. So the dark night of the soul illustrates the journey of uncertainty and despair. It's a passage that needs to be taken to be receptive to profound inner healing and divine inspiration. So next we have the awakening of Kundalini. And Kundalini is considered to be a part of a subtle energy system, which has been acknowledged by various cultures for thousands of years. The Kundalini is said to lie dormant at the base of the spinal column, and when aroused, it generally travels upwards along the spinal cord, passing through each of the psychic centers on the way to the crown chakra. And when activated, one may experience powerful sensations of heat and energy along the spine, as well as psychological, physiological, and parapsychological phenomena. It is believed that the full awakening of Kundalini is the peak of human evolution, the absolute and final state attainable by the human being. And it's an experience in which one becomes an embodiment of the divine. So the shamanic crisis is next. And shamanism is a family of traditions focusing on entering an altered state of consciousness, traveling to other realms, and interacting with non-physical entities in order to learn and acquire power to heal and serve the community. An episode of shamanic illness is often involuntary. There seems to be a universal pattern following a sequence of illness, self-healing, and the development of healing powers. And during the process, an individual may lose contact with their environment, appear to be dying or going crazy, be plagued by mysterious illnesses, experience hallucinations, visions, and dramatic dreams. The shamanic illness cannot be seen as a process of purification, as it annihilates the former personality and gives access to the hidden and highest potentials of human existence. So episodes of unitive consciousness is the next one, and this has been recorded throughout various cultures for thousands of years. During the experience, one may feel they have transcended time and space, as well as experiencing strong feelings of joy, bliss, serenity, and peace. There may be a sense of infinity, eternity, a non-dual state of ecstatic union with humanity, nature, and God, as well as a profound feeling of sacredness. And next is psychic opening. Reports of psychic phenomena have been recorded throughout history in mythology, fairy tales, as well as in spiritual and religious texts. During a period of psychic opening or increased psychic awareness, one can experience various unusual phenomena such as ESP, remote viewing, out-of-body experiences, precognition, telepathy, and heightened intuitive capacity, amongst others. Past life experience. So spontaneous recollections of past life experiences are often triggered by memory cues, such as traveling through an area where one claims to have lived, or seeing someone whom one claims to have known in their previous life. A typical case would begin with a young child, say 2 to 3 years of age, spontaneously giving details about a previous life, their family, geographical location, possibly some significant life events, and the circumstances surrounding their death. Special skills or phobias have also corresponded to experiences in the claimed past life, and the position of birthmarks or bodily deformities often correspond to the cause of death in the past life. Next, we have near-death experience. And a typical near-death experience will begin with someone leaving their physical body and viewing it from above, traveling through a dark tunnel, often at great speed, arriving at a bright open space, meeting loved ones and a benevolent figure, often experiencing a life review, and then reaching some kind of threshold where they need to make the decision, or they're forced to have this, or it's forced upon them to return to the physical body. So each experience is different, but often they involve a cognitive component, such as time distortion, thought acceleration, and an affective component, such as feelings of peace, joy, and cosmic unity. A paranormal component, such as enhanced vision or hearing, ESP, precognition, and of course the out-of-body experience. And a transcendental component, including encounters with an unearthly realm, a mystical being, and their deceased loved ones. And the next spiritual emergency is possession states. And spirit possession has played an important role in historical religious traditions and was often induced through fasting, drumming, and dancing. The possessed person's mind, body, and soul is taken over by an external force, spirit, entity, or a separate personality. The possessed experience face and body contortions, spasms and cramps, and alterations in their voice. Some anthropologists consider possession a culturally shaped, altered state of consciousness with similar experiences occurring within many belief systems around the world. Next, we have the activation of the central archetype. And archetypal images are primordial patterns and form the basic content of religions, mythologies, legends, and fairy tales of all ages. They can arise in dreams and visions, during times of deep psychological analysis, or during episodes of mental illness. The archetype representing the center or the central archetype expresses psychic wholeness and totality. The activation of the central archetype can be understood as the psyche's effort to transform its entire structure of values, meanings, and cultural orientation. And next we have experiences of close encounters with UFOs. So here we see a typical encounter starting with the sight of a bright light or the appearance of strange beings. One feels powerless and controlled, unable to move, and may find themselves being transported onto some type of craft, typically finding themselves in a brightly lit room filled with unusual equipment. They're often stretched out on a bed or an examining table, while a non-human being performs what the experiencer believes is to be some kind of a medical examination. After this, they're programmed to forget, or their memories are somehow erased, and they feel confused upon their return, often reporting significant amounts of lost time and unusual markings in their bodies. So as you can imagine, without prior understanding or some kind of roadmap to navigate these unusual experiences, the experiencer may easily become bewildered and find it extremely difficult to process and communicate their experience to others in a coherent way. Let's have the next slide. However, if we can successfully navigate the spiritual emergency, the outcome often leads to the emergence or awakening of a new capacity or a talent, such as an increase in creativity or intuitive ability, and in some cases, the development of a genuine psychic gift. However, in contrast, a negative reaction to a spiritual emergency can include such phenomena as delusions and hallucinations, which is why many clinicians will misdiagnose these experiences as some type of psychotic disorder. And this may lead to various unfortunate consequences for the experiencer. So, although the evidence indicates that spiritual emergency is independent of psychosis, most clinicians still lack understanding and knowledge regarding spiritual emergency. And you may wonder if those experiencing spiritual emergency feel like they are psychotic. Well, the Grofs found that people experiencing spiritual emergency are generally lucid and have a sense of their own inner processes. They realize that the changes in their experiential world are due to the changes they are experiencing within and are not the cause of external events. In contrast, it's generally believed that people experiencing psychosis lack the insight to see that the condition has something to do with their own psyche. And so coming back to our earlier question, since many people are psychic and not all of them have SE, does SE guarantee psi or give an advantage towards psi? Well, ultimately, we're not sure, as reports of psychic experience are largely anecdotal. There's no objective research on psychic opening. So in our study, Lance and I sought to clarify and understand the proposed relationships between psychic opening, and spiritual emergency. Psi generally includes things like ESP, telepathy, clairvoyance, and precognition. And in this study, we tested precognition. So as mentioned earlier, after the SE is resolved, the psi ability or psi experience may continue or discontinue. So even though there is a weak correlation, we know that spiritual emergency and psychosis are different. Research has indicated that alogia, which is confused thinking and speech, depression, anxiety, and stress often occur during psychosis. But research has also revealed that SE differs from psychosis by its divergent relationship with alogia, depression, anxiety, and stress. And research has also confirmed that scores on the spiritual emergency scale do not correlate significantly with depression as measured on Beck's depression inventory. There is not much research regarding the effects of alogia, depression, anxiety, and stress on psi performance, though it is known that these symptoms, especially the depression and the anxiety, are not likely to be psi conductive. And this means that people experiencing psychosis generally don't have psi experiences, as these symptoms would get in the way. However, we do know that paranormal belief is well established as being psi conductive. Okay, so now that you have the background, in this research, we tested two groups of people. We had a control group and we had another group of people who had experienced a spiritual emergency. And we asked the following three questions. Firstly, do the people who have had a spiritual emergency have a psi performance advantage? Secondly, does psi, measured as direct hits, which Lance will explain in the research following, does this correlate with spiritual emergency, psychic opening, psychosis, alogia, depression, anxiety, stress, or paranormal belief? And thirdly, does psi as rank scores correlate with any of these same 8 variables? Over to you, Lance.
Right, can you hear me, everyone?
Mm-hmm.
So we've got two measures of psi performance, that's direct hits and rank score. So keep those in mind, and I'll explain those a little bit further in detail shortly. The other thing is that we've got two groups, SE experiences, which will call people that have had spiritual emergency or are going through it currently. And the other group are controls, which were mainly university students. And university students are very similar to the general population, except they're a bit younger usually, and they're more experimental. So mainstream society is a little bit more conservative, but otherwise, university students are very good as control subjects. So as far as methodology is concerned, we measured alogia, which was just described to you as confused speech or problems conveying your thoughts and ideas in language. The other problems are depression, anxiety, stress, and paranormal belief, of course, is not a problem unless you're a skeptic and you think it's a delusional state. Okay, but we don't think so. So we conducted a size test. Actually, it's a precognition test, which will become clearer as I go along. Precognition is a good thing to test because there's no way you can fraud can enter into it, because the actual target hasn't been generated yet. You're asking people to say what they think will happen or what image will appear, and then the image is generated. So it eliminates a lot of problems. As I said, we test two groups, controls and the SE experience. The measures were the spiritual emergency scale. Now, Monika went through the 10 subscales, and all of those are different forms of spiritual emergency. So we've collated various items from those different subscales, those 10 different subscales, and created one all-purpose smaller scale, which works as a convenience measure. So you don't have to measure hundreds of items. You can just take the 30, which is what we did, take the 30 more prominent items from each of those scales, and you can rely on them to give a good indication of spiritual emergency. Monika also prepared a psychotic symptoms scale for her PhD thesis, and we'll call that EPSS for short. That scale is to measure positive symptoms of psychosis. It also measures alogia. That's confused speech.
Recording in progress.
Number 3, the Australian sheep-goat scale. Now, I mentioned paranormal belief before, so we need a measure of paranormal belief. And Michael Thalborn, who was late Michael Thalborn, who was my supervisor in my PhD, as well as Monika's supervisor, he devised the Australian sheep-goat scale to measure belief and alleged experience of paranormal phenomena. It's called sheep-goat. It's not meant to be prejudicial or single out people in any negative way. It's just a biblical reference. The sheep were the believers and the goats were the disbelievers. That's not saying anything detrimental about sheep or goats. It's just a convenience term. And the 4th measure was depression, anxiety, stress scales, because we want to look at depression, anxiety, and stress, obviously. And now the materials, what did we use to actually test this psychic skill or psychic ability? Well, there's a thing called the Corel Stock Photos Library, and there's 300 photographs, and they're all pulled into different categories, groups, and with different numbers of photographs in each of them. There's 12 groups altogether into 5 different categories. So the categories can be like waterfalls, buildings, mountain scenes, that sort of thing. And these are presented on screen via a desktop computer or laptop. I used a desktop computer in my laboratory, and when Monika did her testing of people with spiritual emergency, she may have used a laptop, or other people may have used a laptop. We need a random number generator to get access to those photographs. You can't just dip in like a lucky dip or whatever. You need a very systematic, foolproof system that's truly random to give every photo, every one of those 300 photos, an equal chance of coming up. Because if you have any biases, that can ruin your statistics and create an artifact. The creator of the random number generator that I used is Helmut Schmidt, which you can see in the photograph there. And my device is pretty similar to that one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He's got more lights. Mine was like a clock face with 12 lights. But other than that, they work the same way. And the lights just rotate in a sort of simulated motion. And what I did was number the lights to give me group numbers and category numbers. And that's how we identify targets and target sets. Before people actually use that device to generate a target photograph, this is a future target photograph, we put them through an imagery cultivation, which is a process that Adam Rock at University of New England and myself devised many years ago now, coming up to 2 decades. And a lot of studies have been done using this system, and it works really well, if you want my opinion. What we do is put headphones on the participants. It goes for 9.5 minutes. It's relaxing music or sound effects, plus guided imagery, which I'll give you an example of that shortly. The main theme is to imagine a future target, because you're going to be looking for that photograph embedded amongst decoys. And if you get it right, that's a direct hit. But you can also get a rank score, which is another measure, and I should explain that shortly. So the control participants, as I said, these were all psychology students, in particular the first-year students. and they signed up online, and I tested them. And the SE experience, that's the spiritual emergency experience, they had to meet the criteria for suitability on a clinical level. And this was done by email or telephone interview conducted by Monika. The measures were completed on a computer. That's those.
Yes.
Okay. The following then followed the shamanic life journey and protocol developed by Adam Rock and myself, as I explained, and this includes the guided imagery, musical tones, and a relaxation component. We call the visualization of images in the mind imagery cultivation, or IC for short. Here are some sample instructions. Now visualize a photographic image before you, one that you will see later on the computer monitor. Imagine the photograph appearing on the computer monitor. Study the photograph in all its detail. Remember this information for later. After that, the participant does the precognition test. This involves using the random number generator, which you saw before, to generate the 5 photos and a target photo amongst those 5. So the typical array might appear like that. Once they've identified the 5 photographs, they have to go through and look for the photograph that resembles the one they visualized amongst those 5. So only one is the target, and the other 4 are just decoys. They rank the photographs 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 according to the most likely to be the target and the least likely to be the target. So what we're looking for is to see if what the person visualized is the same as the future target. Rank 1 is a direct hit, and we use direct hits and rank scores as our 2 measures. The average rank score is 3. So you can see if you've got the photographs ranked 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, you average it out. The typical rank score should be 3 if in a large sample, it should average or converge to 3, which means just chance explains the outcomes. Then the target's generated. Finally, the target is revealed to the participant, and we check the rank for the target. So you see anything higher than 3, that means better than 3. So like rank 1 and rank 2 are a good indication that there's psychic effect taking place. If it's 3 or greater, like 4 or 5, then there seems to be some sort of avoidance effect or just chance is taking place. So here's their preliminary findings. For the 200 participants, that's my control subjects and Monika's participants as well, all joined together. The direct hits was 25%. Chance is 1/5 or 20%. So you see if you've got 5 photographs, the chance hit rate is 20%. Does that make sense? 1 in 5? We got 25%. So that's 5% above what you should get by chance. The mean rank score is 2.84, right? Well, that's less than 3, which means, so 2.84 is fairly close to 3, but it's on its way to 1. In other words, it's on its way to direct hit. But in real life, nothing's so perfect. But 2.84 is a good score. The SE experience had significantly higher spiritual emergency than the controls. So on this is the scale scores here. Theirs was 82.12 and the controls were 49.9. So you can see from that the spiritual experiences are saying yes or true to a lot of those items in the spiritual emergency scale. And the average score is 82%. So that's like every 10 questions, there's 8 they're saying true to, whereas it's a lot lower for the controls. Spiritual emergency experience also had significantly higher paranormal belief. Now, they might already be high in paranormal belief anyway, or something's changed in their mindset because of the experiences that they've had. So those are the 2 possibilities. Fortunately for them, they had lower alogia, lower depression, lower anxiety, and lower stress. So let's get back to our questions. Do SE experience have a psi performance advantage? Well, the direct hits was not significant, but the SE experience's hit rate was higher, 26% compared to 24% for the controls. So there's this difference. So they're pulling away. The SE experience seemed to have some psychic opening happening, whereas controls Even though they got 24%, which is better than 20%, it's not as strong as the SE experience. There's that 2% difference, and it's not a significant difference, but it is a gap. Did psi, which is direct hits, correlate with any of these? Spiritual emergency, psychic opening, psychosis, alogia, depression, anxiety, stress, and paranormal belief. Well, psi direct hits correlated positively with the spiritual emergency scale scores, psychic opening, and paranormal belief, but not significantly. Now, the significance testing, I won't go into the details as to how that works. That can depend on the size of the sample, and the bigger the sample, the more chance you've got of getting a true indication of the effects in society, and also the fact that these correlations were positive is a good sign. So that might have reached significance if we had bigger samples. We only had time to test 200 participants altogether. Now, the direct hits variable did not correlate significantly with psychosis, alogia, depression, anxiety, or stress. That's also a good sign. It means that just because you get a hit on a psychic task doesn't mean you've got alogia, psychosis, depression, anxiety, or stress. Question 3, did psi, this time it says rank scores. So that's based on scores from 1 to 5 on average. Did that correlate with any of these? That's spiritual emergency, psychic opening, psychosis, alogia, depression, anxiety, stress, and paranormal belief. A lot of variables there. I hope you're keeping up, but you can ask questions later. Now, ranked scores correlated negatively and significantly with spiritual emergency and psychic opening. That means high SES and psychic opening gives you a better rank score. So don't be confused by the negative score. What it means is if the spiritual emergency scale score is high, you're more likely to get a 1, which is like a direct hit, and much less likely to get a low ranking, like 4 or 5. So rank scores did not correlate significantly with psychosis, alogia, depression, anxiety, and stress. And that was something that I was saying before, that just because you did well in the task doesn't mean that you suffer from any of these conditions. Rank scores correlated negatively and significantly with paranormal belief. That is, stronger paranormal belief tended to indicate better rank scores. So there was pushing towards, away from 3 towards 2s and 1s. If your paranormal belief score is high. And that's also called the sheep-goat effect, based on that sheep-goat scale, which is a measure of paranormal belief. It's often found that people that believe in paranormal phenomena and have experiences of paranormal phenomena tend to do better at psi tasks. Not always, but it's a general finding. Note also that spiritual emergency correlated significantly with psychosis. So there is some overlap, and we can go into details later about that. Conclusions. So this is wrapping up now. The SE experience had higher spiritual emergency. They have higher paranormal belief and lower stress than the controls. The SE experienced slightly more psi and reported more psychic opening. Rank scores only, not direct hits, correlated with paranormal belief, spiritual emergency, and psychic opening. Psi and SE did not correlate significantly with measures often regarded as comorbid with psychosis. So that's the main take-home message here. The comorbid symptoms are depression, anxiety, and stress. But psychosis did correlate significantly with alogia, depression, anxiety, stress, and spiritual emergency. And I've got a little asterisk there saying that, yes, there is a correlation between psychosis and spiritual emergency, but just because you have one doesn't mean you have the other. There's the overlap, which I was referring to. For those that know statistics, it's the correlation is 0.68, which is 46% variance explained, which means the scoring on one scale is 46% of that variance is explained by the other variable. So it seems high, but it's still not the same thing because of those correlates, the differences in those correlational tests. We found paranormal belief predicted spiritual emergency, which correlated with psychic opening, and psychic opening predicted psych performance, which we found was more prevalent among SE experience. And that's the end. So thanks, everybody. I hope that made sense. We can now transition to questions and answers if you have any queries. Please direct them towards myself or Monika.